There's different takes here. Some people say this is very normal of administration. Some people say that this was not happening during the Trump administration. So I want to bring in an expert. And today we have Matt Boyle. He's the Washington political editor from Breitbart News. Thank you so much for joining us again, Matt.
Always a pleasure. Glad to be here.
So, Matt, my first question for you is how normal is this? Because depending on where I read these stories from, some people say this is very normal. There's nothing to see here. And then other people say, this is a little bit concerning.
Well, look, I think that all politicians, whether they be Republicans, Democrats, whatever, they're always trying to get ahead of the curve of what a reporter is going to ask in an open setting like a press briefing at the White House. So that's fairly typical of politicians. That being said, what's not typical and what's not acceptable is if anybody in the media is providing said questions in advance to the White House. Now, we don't know if that's the case. We do know that the White House is trying to do it and that it's concerned people across the media enough to the point where, according to this Daily Beast report last night, that the White House Correspondents Association in a private phone call actually had, which is a group of all the reporters, right, like from all these media outlets, they actually had to bring it up and address it and then provide advice to the media across the because apparently the Biden White House has been so aggressive. But the bigger picture here isn't whether or not this is normal or not. It's a sign of the incompetence of the Biden White House. The window through which you get to see, the public gets to see how the highest level of your government, the White House, operates is through the press briefing room. It's through the press secretary. And what we see from Jen Psaki, we call her the circle woman at Breitbart because she likes to circle back to everything, right? She's not very prepared as a press secretary. And by the way, it's good that there's at least a pledge to provide an accurate information. That's a positive step. But the bigger picture here is that again, she's not prepared. So one would think that on everything that she's not circling back on, because she's circling back on so many different things, the circle woman, right, that those people in the media would potentially have been providing topics or questions or what they intend to do in advance, and that's concerning. But the real problem that we see here, and it's all fun and games when we play the game of circle back and conservative Twitter and memes and so on and so forth, until such time as you actually look at the fact that the reason why this is even a problem, the reason why we are talking about Jen Psaki's incompetence at the podium and her inability to answer basic questions about the functions of government, is that, again, getting back to that whole theme of the window that you see into the government, into the highest levels of American government, the White House, the President of the United States, Vice President of the United States, is through that press briefing room. We're seeing the legislative agenda of the Biden administration in complete shambles. The two bills that they introduced right off the bat, both a giant amnesty immigration plan and a coronavirus relief plan, are both failing to gain enough support to move through Congress. And we're not even 2 weeks in yet. We're not even 2 weeks in yet, and it's already a giant mess. They've had to roll back plans of executive orders that they had planned to put out, but they've already done more executive orders than any president in modern history, more than Trump did in his first couple weeks and more than Obama did in his first couple weeks. They've killed off as many as 1 million jobs through these energy orders, the halt on leasing for oil and natural gas on federal lands, and the Keystone XL pipeline, among others. They've already found themselves in legal trouble down in Texas with regard to their deportation freeze. And again, their broader agenda, legislatively and executively, is in serious trouble. They are having problems addressing the crises of the moment. Biden does not have a clear answer with regard to how his views on whether or not the Senate should proceed with this meaningless impeachment trial of his immediate predecessor, Donald Trump. We know that the trial will fail and President Trump will be acquitted in the United States Senate. But again, while the Democrats on Capitol Hill are proceeding with this chicanery and nonsense and shenanigans, the American people are struggling. There are many crises that the country is going through, like the pandemic, which Joe Biden made a centerpiece of his campaign, and the people are trying to get back to work, back to school. We're trying to get this virus in the rearview mirror.
But Matt, let me stop you there for one sec, because my question is, you talk about the shenanigans, and I agree with you. And normally, I don't think it would be as big of a deal, but it does seem, at least as far as Jen Psaki is concerned, that for these people who dunk on conservatives all the time, the press does bother them. Any sort of pushback or any sort of criticism really does weigh on them. She mentioned it yesterday. We played that clip today. She talked about conservative Twitter. Does it surprise you that this is what they're focusing on when they have so many other things to worry about?
Well, yeah, and again, it first off, it's an odd obsession. It's this weird obsession that they're so focused. I mean, look, they got control. They got the White House, the Senate, and the House. And Jen Psaki's so concerned about conservative Twitter, so to speak, quote unquote. I mean, come on, right? Like, why aren't they governing? There are real crises that the American people are going through, and they are not meeting the moment. And this is proof of everything that Donald Trump said, everything that Republicans warned about in the lead up to the November 3rd elections last year, that the Democrats weren't ready to handle these crises. And guess what? We're now seeing that play out in front of us. They are wasting time on nonsense impeachments. Jen Psaki is playing games in the press briefing room. She's treating it like it's a television drama, like The West Wing or something. She's not leading like an actual press secretary should. But again, Psaki's incompetence is a window into the broader problems inside the Biden administration. Just because she's incompetent doesn't mean the rest of the people are. So what we're seeing now is that their failures to stand up a credible government that can respond to the major crises that America is going through is playing out in real time in front of us. And again, every day that goes by where they don't solve these problems, it's only going to get worse politically for the Democrats, and worse, more importantly, worse economically, societally, and public health-wise for the American people. So again, they're not solving the problems of this country. They're playing games in Washington.
I'm talking to Matt Boyle from Breitbart. He's an excellent columnist for Breitbart. He keeps up with everything happening in D.C. Matt, my next question for you actually has to do with the Biden administration. What do you think of this $1.9 trillion COVID relief bill? There's a lot of talk about how this is going to get passed, if it's going to get pushed through, if there's bipartisan support. Although Joe Biden does have a lot of power right now, does he have enough to get everything done?
Well, look, if they do, so last night, 10 Republican senators went up to the White House to go meet with Joe Biden. The Republican senators offered a $600 billion plan. They are $1.3 trillion apart. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of differences between the Republicans in Congress and the Biden administration and the Democrats in Congress. So I don't know if they're going to get the Republicans on board. I know that the Republicans are negotiating in good faith, and it seems like the Biden and people in the Democrats are too. The question is, will they get to an agreement? If they don't, if the Democrats then try to proceed through what's called reconciliation, they can pass a bill out of the Senate using 51 votes. So only Democrats, and only Democrats in their House majority. But to do that, they'd have to be perfect. They can't lose a single Democrat. And there are serious concerns that Joe Manchin, the Democrat senator from West Virginia, or Kirsten Sinema, another one from Arizona, among other Democrats out there from around the country, may not be on board with Biden's vision. I mean, Joe Manchin has had a tiff with Kamala Harris, the vice president.
Yeah, Matt, I want to stop you there and drill in on that. I'm talking to Matt Boyle from Breitbart. You talked about how Jen Psaki is kind of the window into seeing how unprepared this White House is. But were you surprised at I want to say how much of a lightweight Kamala Harris has become? I mean, when she gets in front of a microphone, which is very rare, she makes some pretty big gaffes. And then I think that this fight with Joe Manchin was kind of an unforced error. She didn't need it to happen. And now it's seeming like it could really put, their plans in jeopardy.
Yeah, absolutely. But look, it's not surprising. I mean, Kamala Harris flamed out of the presidential race she didn't even perform that well on the campaign trail. So we know that Kamala Harris is not prepared for the job. And then when she was selected for vice president for Joe Biden's running mate, they protected her, right? They built an impenetrable cocoon around her, and they limited her public appearances. So again, it's not surprising to see her making such massive errors right off the bat. All she needed to do was call Joe Manchin and say, "Hey, I'm going to go on TV in West Virginia and try to help you out," right? And push our agenda. Just wanted to give you a heads up, but she didn't. And similar thing in Arizona with Kirsten Sinema. So I think they've got a real problem on their hands. If they can't get their own team together, if they can't get their own troops together, how are they going to work with the Republicans? It doesn't make any sense. But again, what you're seeing right now is the incompetence of the Democrat Party on display in their inability to rise to the moment, to meet the moment of the crises that America is going through, and their incapability of doing matching the rhetoric that they've put forward of unity and they're going to solve all these problems and so on and so forth with actual actions. So their actions don't match their rhetoric. And again, the window through which you see that is all through Jen Psaki. She is the most one of the least competent press secretaries. Look, I've been doing this for over a decade. I haven't seen somebody as incompetent as her at the podium in a long time. And I think you see it every single day that she goes up there to that podium. You see her make another mistake.
And I think she's getting. I think she's getting more and more in her own head about it too. Because as someone who I tend to operate like that, if I make one mistake, I tend to make more after. And if I feel as though people are criticizing me, then it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I keep making more mistakes. And so I kind of see that playing out a little bit. Matt, my last question for you, and then I have to let you go, is if you could get one straight answer from the press secretary and not something that had to be pre-screened or written out and approved, if you could ask her one question about the Biden administration, what would it be?
I would ask her, what was he thinking when he decided to kill off 1 million American energy jobs and underscore or undercut America's energy independence? For the first time in American history, the United States became a net exporter of energy, essentially energy independent under the Trump administration. And Joe Biden, with two strokes of his pen, killing off the Keystone XL pipeline and then stopping the leasing on federal lands for oil and gas, killed that all at once. So I would ask her, what was he thinking when he decided to go kill 1 million American jobs? And I don't know if I would get a clear answer on that, but we'll see. But
I'm sure she'd circle back, Matt.
But I don't believe them. Yeah, I'm sure she'll circle back.
Matt Boyle from Breitbart, thank you so much for joining us. We hope to have you on again soon. Very interesting. I like hearing about whether or not this is normal. I mean, the pre-screening of questions, it seems like people shouldn't be surprised. I'm going to get into that in the next segment, why you should not be surprised that this is how the press secretary is operating. But before I do, I have to let you guys know February is recognized as American Heart Month, but talking about supporting heart health is not enough. Nearly half of all U.S. adults have heart health problems. And you know what? You can be young and still have heart health problems. This is something that I know a lot of people who have this. They have high blood pressure or they have something else. It's very important to take care of yourself no matter your age, no matter how physically fit you are. It's important to take care of your heart. Something I do is I take my SuperBeets Heart Chews daily. Just 2 SuperBeets Heart Chews per day give you the cardiovascular support and promote the heart-healthy energy you need every day. SuperBeets Heart Chews combines non-GMO beets and clinically researched grapeseed extract, shown to be 2 times as effective at supporting normal blood pressure than a healthy lifestyle alone. I'm holding up SuperBeets for the camera now. I'm going to take one during the next break. In addition to a healthy diet and exercise, supplementing your efforts with SuperBeets Heart Chews to your daily routine is an easy decision to make to support healthy blood pressure and heart health. By the way, they taste really delicious. If you have bad circulation, it can be something as simple as that. It's an easy way to help your circulation, and they taste good, and they're good for you. Now, when you buy a bag of SuperBeets Heart Chews, you can get a second for 50% off, plus free shipping when you make your purchase at getsuperbeets.com/grace. That's getsuperbeets.com/grace. Getsuperbeets.com/grace. We'll be back on the other side with your calls, 844-500-4242. I'm Grace, and this is The Grace Curley Show.
The Grace Curley Show will be right back.